If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Your coffee would never get cold. Your flight would always be on time. And your mattress would always respond to you and your unique sleep needs. Sleep Number mattresses are designed to respond to your body and shift with your changing life, helping you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number. To a good life sleep.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we bring you a full recap of the 20-round MLB draft, which took place over the weekend. And that will be on this episode of Orioles on the Verge, which is brought to you by IQ Bar, exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are delicious, low-sugar, brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ Bar products are clean label certified, entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. All IQ Bar products are packed with clean, delicious ingredients that keep you physically and mentally fit, like magnesium, lion's mane, and more. With over 20,000 five-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body-boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. IQ Bars become part of my daily routines, whether it's starting my morning with IQ Joe, grabbing an IQ Bar or IQ Mix to refuel or rehydrate after a hard workout. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. Text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. And Bob and I were live on the air over the weekend to give you the live stream leading up to when the Orioles had the 7th pick overall in the draft. But Nick was not on the show because, in a twist from past years, Nick was actually in the room on day one of the MLB draft. If you follow us on social media, you likely saw Nick's video from the crowd of the moment it was announced that Eric Booth Jr. was the Orioles' first pick at 7th overall in the draft. So, Nick, before we go through the recap of the players that are in the farm system, what can you tell us about your experience in Philadelphia over the weekend?
It was pretty awesome. I got in there Friday, went to the HBCU All-Star game. Saturday, got to go to day one of the draft, and then Sunday went to the Futures game, which is its own adventure. Not gonna lie, it's a pretty cool moment there. But I did say beforehand, I guess I'll take this opportunity to go in a little discuss the draft, like going to the draft live, right? First, we'll say just like thank you to Major League Baseball for hooking up this weekend. I do preface all this by saying that I'm going to try to keep this like constructive and everything as I can. But thank you to Major League Baseball for hooking up. Truly unforgettable weekend. Like I said, starting out Friday night at the HBCU game. I'd never been to Citizens Bank Park before. So figured Friday night, weather's nice. Go hang around the ballpark, whatever, check out a baseball game. And there was a ticket, front row, right behind the dugout. So I go. Great family. Their daughter giving me unicorn stickers all night. It was great. It was like, I wish my daughter was here. You two could play and have a great time with your stickers there. But the dad thought I was a scout at first. I was their scouting guys, which was an awkward conversation as he tried to sell me on his son who was sitting next to him. But it was a fantastic atmosphere. I got to say hello at least to my childhood GOAT, Ken Griffey Jr. That was amazing. Jimmy Rollins, got to talk with him. He's funny as hell, not gonna lie. And then at one point I'm sitting there and some guy puts his hand on my shoulder And I'm like, who the hell are you? It is John Middleton, the owner of the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't know anything about him. Somebody else told me that it was John Middleton. But it's John Middleton, the owner of the Phillies. And he just talked to me, asking if I'm having a good time, whatever. He's hanging out, watching the game himself. Then I almost watch him die at the ballpark. He jumps over. He's trying to get Jimmy Rollins' attention, and he jumps over the fancy chairbacks right behind home plate. Even the security guy right in front of me, his eyes got like, oh shit, something is about to happen. You could see the fear in his eyes as John Middleton almost falls and collapses inside his own stadium. But that was a fun night. And then the draft on Saturday, like walking into that massive room, it was surreal because you guys know I spend an ungodly amount of hours like researching this draft every year. It's one of my favorite things. Even back when it was 40 rounds, listening to that conference call, every single pick when I covered the draft for multiple teams. I did drop the ball personally because I missed out. Apparently Jeff Passan was there, and I scanned media rows looking for like familiar faces. I missed Jeff Passan completely. Lance Brzezowski, Melanie Newman. I missed all of them, which that was on me, unfortunately. But Major League Baseball failed miserably with the MLB draft. Like completely bombed it. They do not give two shits about their own draft. And I understand that MLB could never even dream of the MLB draft being like what the NFL draft is. It's never even going to be what the NBA draft is. But no players being there live again. And I get it. You don't want like the guys, the pity stories, the guys who fall and they have to sit in the green room for hours and hours. But to not even bring like, I don't know, 8 or 9, maybe 10 guys, like bring in a couple of those guys, Rock Chalowski is going to get drafted, or as Rob Manfred says, Rock Chalowski, biggest moment of the kid's life up to that point, and he can't pronounce his name, the number 1 overall pick in your league. But no players there. That's fine. The timing was atrocious. 1:30 on a Saturday, while Major League Baseball games are still being played. People are out and about. People are also going to the baseball games. Like they're going to their teams to watch them play. They're not tuning into the draft. Even casual fans who are like, yeah, I'll see the first round pick, see who this kid is. All right. And then go about your day. No, they're not even tuning in because don't you want them at the ballpark? Like that's what you want. That's where they're at on Saturday afternoon. So timing is a disaster. You got to switch between like 3 different platforms. I think you guys I listened to y'all's the live stream on the way home from Philly, and you guys were trying to like flipping through the different things. What network are you supposed to watch on this thing? The in-draft show was non-existent. They had some DJ who was pretending to a DJ, but she wasn't actually doing anything. They had like 10 mascots there. Was almost physically assaulted by the Philly Fanatic. The guy behind me got in the crosshairs there and blocked that, luckily.
He saw what you did to his owner and was taking revenge.
I guess. He smelled it. But, I thought in between picks, maybe they would like pump in the broadcast, and that could be like to fill the dead air. Like, I don't actually care what Harold Reynolds has to say about these guys, but the crew was right there. And they pumped in that intro, whatever intro everybody saw on TV. They pumped that in and played some video for everybody on the big screen. But then that was it. So it was Rob Manfred comes out, announces the pick. He goes right off stage. That's it. They go right to DJ spinning music, throwing T-shirts, the mascots coming out dancing, high-fiving, whatever, nothing. They had Robert Flores out there and someone else from MLB Network. I don't remember her name. I don't really watch MLB Network. She was great. She really tried. They would come out every 5 picks or so and recap the previous picks. And she would kind of bring out some funny facts, try to get the crowd engaged. Like, Braves fans, your favorite player, do you know, like he's a fried chicken connoisseur and he like ranks chicken sandwiches or something. That might've been Jackson Flora. I don't remember, but like she brought some fun facts like that. Robert Flores did not care. He had no energy. He could not care less what he was doing at that point. At one point, he reads off the paper about some prospect. I don't remember who was drafted. He goes, Baseball America says this so-and-so player has a body, a pro body. And he like throws the paper in the air basically and is like, looks off to, producer or somebody off to the side. And it's just like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I reading this paper to these people? He was disgusted by the whole thing. And then as soon as the Dodgers picked at 40, Manfred walks off the stage. Robert Flores walks back out. I was like, all right, that's it. Drive safe, everybody. Thanks for coming out. And then I tune in. They No, it wasn't Lauren Shahadi. But I wish I could remember her name. Actually, I would go and look on the MLB thing. But they usher us out. We were supposed to go left. I go right. And the All-Star Village is there. The door opened. I went in. Nobody stopped me. So I walked around All-Star Village for a moment. And I put the draft broadcast on my phone because I know the Orioles about to come up with their second round pick. And I see Melanie Newman. Who else was it? Lance Brzezowski, Carlos Collazo, and Jim Callis. And I can hear the heavy machinery in the background of the draft broadcast because they immediately started tearing down the set in that room we were just in. I don't, that was too long. I know people have probably already tuned out. Not a lot of people care, but it was just like, I don't know. I'm ranting, but Major League Baseball failed miserably with the draft. It was a joke of a production. They make these documentaries following college prospects to put on this fake show that like they support the kids. Would I go again? Yes, because I'm sick. I would go again. I did meet some awesome fans there, and who knew college ball, and we had our own discussions after each pick. But don't let the bright lights fool you. Like Major League Baseball does not care about this event at all.
Yeah, if their CBA negotiations didn't already tell you that,
Yeah.
I don't care. You could have kept going. I was enjoying just being a listener to that rant. That was awesome. Yeah, we were talking about, you look on the schedule. Well, first of all, I assumed it was at night until like the week of the draft. And then I'm like, oh, it starts at 1. Okay. First round, 1 to 2:30 on Peacock/NBC. So we sign on live at 1 o'clock to start the draft. First pick didn't get taken till like, what was it? 137, 138, something like that. So yeah, that was annoying. Everything about the decision-making process was annoying. The draft itself, always fun. Can't wait to get into the guys that the Orioles selected. But man, yeah, you're not joking.
Well, this is the Braves took Carter Beck, the outfielder from Indiana. He comes out, he announces the pick, and then he goes back. And afterwards, it was just team name, like you guys saw on the broadcast, what was behind Rob Manfred there on the screen. And it'd be just a headshot and an action shot. That was it after each pick. That's all the fans got. No information about these players. And so it was like, Braves draft Carter Beck, outfielder from Indiana State, walks off the stage. They had a black blank silhouette. They didn't have a photo of this kid. So Braves fans, no clue who they drafted. They just didn't even try with this whole thing, but whatever. Yeah. Eric Booth Jr.
I mean, wouldn't it make sense to do like the last Sunday before the All-Star break, have everybody play at 1 or 4, and then start the draft at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then do like the first round or 2, and then you can have the rest of the weekend to just no one's going to care after the first couple rounds anyway, so do whatever. But you should at least make that first round count.
Yeah, just something to give the casual fans at least something to watch and enjoy and learn a little bit. I'm passionate about it, so I know we don't have the biggest platform, but there's my spiel. But thanks. I do appreciate it, Major League Baseball. But
and we have some tips on how you can improve.
I'll just ask this question before we move into the main topic of the episode. I watched the video that you took when Rob Manfred announced that the Orioles' first pick was Eric Booth Jr. Did they actually play Uptown Girl the second that Rob Manfred finished saying that the Orioles had selected Eric Booth Jr.? Because I'm watching the video, and I see the whole moment unfold, and then music starts blaring. I'm like, are they playing Uptown Girl? It's
probably. I have to go back and listen. L.A., New York, the big cities got fun videos, but of course, like smaller teams like the Orioles, here's your pick. Congrats. Go buy some food.
Needle drop of the century. Uptown Girl.
Well, there's a little spoiler for our listeners. We're going to abruptly sign off in 10 minutes and leave you with Uptown Girl.
Yeah, we'll be back. Stay tuned for our reaction to the draft picks on Peacock, if you have it.
So, going back to the draft picks, I have a feeling we'll be revisiting this conversation at some point before the summer is over. But the Orioles started off day one by selecting Eric Booth Jr., an outfielder out of Oak Grove High School in Mississippi. They followed it up with Ty Head, a player that we've been discussing in our draft coverage, both on air and then over at Substack. We had mocked him to the Orioles a few times at the 46th pick overall. That was indeed the pick. They then followed that up in the third round, pick number 82 with Dominic Vegley, who was the first pitcher taken by the Orioles in this year's draft class, a right-hander out of Kansas. And then they rounded out day one with Kevin Roberts Jr., a big outfielder out of Jackson Prep High School in Mississippi. And if you want to talk about a guy with wild tools, Roberts certainly fits that bill. But we'll break down all three players taken, or all four players taken on day one in this part of the episode. And Nick, I'll go back to you to start this one because you were not on air with us when Booth was announced on Saturday. So what were your thoughts on that pick?
I thought the draft fell perfectly for the Orioles. Listening to y'all's live stream on the way back home, even then I knew exactly what was going to happen, obviously, because the draft already occurred. But you guys are like, the Pirates, the pick is in. I'm still like perking up. I was like, what's going to happen? But it went chalk up to that point, and I say the Pirates because then they go Derek Carriel, and then the Royals went a little rogue, as a lot of people said they were going to with Zion Rose. So when that left, like Booth, Burris, Hakopian Bell, Lombard, like all the picks were right there. I went into it thinking Eric Booth Jr. is my top choice. That's who I had settled on. I wanted. But then with Burris there, after the Royals made the pick, I'm thinking, all right, do I still want Booth as my top option? Or do I want Burris? And for me, it was like 1A, 1B at that point, knowing that they were both available and seeing how this board fell. But I just went with the upside here. I think separates it for me. Like elite speed, elite athleticism. He's going to stick in center field. The strong hit tool already, you saw all the questionable hit tools. They all fell in this draft. But he's got real juice in the bat. Just turned 18, like a week or so ago. So very young. And I think when you look at the deficiencies in his game, it doesn't seem like it's nothing that's going to need a John Mioli like case study, right? It's like smoothing things around the edges. And one of my favorite articles every year is the Baseball America. Like they do it in February. Here's our top 30 draft prospects right now at that time. And here's like 2 or 3 things each of these players needs to improve on. And it really helps me narrow some early viewings of these guys. And for Booth, they said like mechanical adjustments to his swing were in order, better route running and improved arm strength. And there's been loads of reporting about the increased hit tool throughout the fall and everything, fall, spring, whatever season we're going through. But also you had Will Robertson right after the draft come out and say we had him work out in Sarasota, and that was the arm looked as better than it's ever been. They were super pleased with the arm strength. So I think I think that might have been the mock draft episode. We talked about, living with Cedric Mullins' arm because of everything else he brought defensively to the table. If Booth is going to be at least average arm out there, combined with all of his other tools, like this is fantastic. That little bit of defensive separation, I think, does a lot for me when you say, do you want the college bat, someone that can help you now versus the high school pick? If you want to bang the table for Drew Burris and say he should have been the pick, I'm not going to fight you on it. There's a lot of valid reasons why it should have been Drew Burris, but personally, I like the Booth, the ceiling and then all of that plays a part into it. I think that just gave him the little bit of edge there. And I thought it was really cool just to learn more off the field. I know I posted it in Patreon, but for anyone else, got a quote, reached out for some quotes about Booth off the field. And so for anyone who's interested, because I like learning about these kids off the field a little bit. They're human beings, right? First and foremost, but got a great response about Eric Booth Jr. Really smart kid, pretty low key, loves to fish in the pond at his house and play pickleball. He absolutely loves pickleball. We got another great one with great family support. And so I just thought that's a little icing on the cake there for his profile.
Yeah, since obviously we already recorded our reactions live, but I was either Burris or Booth. I would be happy with either of them. But just upon reflection, getting to dive into, like, I am not the guy that knows everything like Nick beforehand. We had a comment that said Nick knows every college player in America. So of course the Orioles went and got like 9 high schoolers or whatever. But it's been super fun for me. And it always is every year to, after the draft, just completely just dive into the info that we get on these guys. And the more I learn about Booth, the more I love the pick. I mean, yeah, even the things, it's not like he needs a complete swing overhaul. It's just like cleaning things up. I think the Orioles are going to be pretty good at that. He's got good raw power. Yeah, we could tap it into games. And the fact that his age, like he just turned 18 on the 4th of July, this seems like he has the potential to be a top 3 ceiling pick in this draft overall. And to get him at 7, I think you can't ask for much more than that. A high upside guy like this. And Yeah, I think the EBJ comparisons were ridiculous that I saw somewhere on social media. The only thing in common with EBJ is their initials.
Yeah, there's no similarities between those two, from the way that they're built, from the way that Booth can launch the ball now in ways that I'm sure Bradfield couldn't at the same age. I watched some. The only thing I really have to say after my reaction to Saturday is that I started to watch Booth swing a little bit more critically. Now that I know he's coming into the system, let me look at it again and see what jumps out at me. And it's an awkward load. In other words, it's the way that he moves his hand as he's starting to get the bat into the zone. From there on out, to me, everything looks okay. Yeah, I have seen way worse swings from high school players. This is not Elijah Green Jr. with the big looping thing that you could just drop a curveball in and it's going to go right through. It's not Drew Jones hitting a breaking ball off his front foot. This is actually pretty clean. You can you can look at that swing and say, okay, there's one flaw that is not going to get exposed for a while. Low A pitchers are not going to expose that flaw. High A pitchers might not expose it all that much. When it gets up to the higher level, it will be exposed, but you've got the time to correct it before it gets in. And the adjustments it's going to take to correct it are not significant ones.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm very excited to see where he ranks in our top 50 in a few weeks. So, yeah, it's been fun to I've been messing with my list with these guys, trying to learn as much as I can to tinker around, see where they could fall in the top 50 or my top 100, which is just for me. But, I love the draft. Can't wait to get into more of these guys. We got ahead.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Your coffee would never get cold. Your flight would always be on time. And your mattress would always respond to you and your unique sleep needs. Sleep Number mattresses are designed to respond to your body and shift with your changing life, helping you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life sleep.
Yes, we did. And that's a good segue here just to talk about Ty Head. As I mentioned in our coverage, we've talked about him quite a bit so far, but the numbers at NC State this year as a draft-eligible sophomore, 294 batting average, 1039 OPS, 14 homers after hitting just 4 the year before, and a 142 WRC+. He also walked 23% of the time while striking out in just 9% of his plate appearances and going 25 for 28 in stolen base attempts. So that right there gives you a good snapshot of Head's skill set. Great back-to-ball skills, excellent eye at the plate, has something of a line drive stroke. Probably not going to translate into home run power at the next level, but there's something, there's some reason to believe there's something behind the bat. And on top of that, very good defensive center fielder.
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty slam dunk pick. When you look at how the board fell, there were no infielders there at that point. You could go the UVA shortstop route again if you guys want to do that. Eric Becker, Tyson LeBlanc from Kansas was there. They're fine, but I don't want to take them in the second round when guys like D. Kennedy went in the fourth or fifth round. If you want to tell me the Orioles should have drafted Ethan Kleinschmidt or Ben Blair or Mason Edwards, who I think all three of those guys went right after the Orioles pick, sure, I'd gladly listen to that argument, but I think the Orioles just had that opportunity there to land another impactful bat who plays a premium position, and you need a lot of that position. And the Orioles could really use an injection of talent at that specific position in the outfield. The Orioles still brought in a buttload of college pitching. No infielders there at that situation that I'm taking at 46 overall. I just think there was a clear tier break right there. After Ty Head, you look at the other outfielders that went. Jake Brown, Sawyer Stroh-Snyder fell all the way down the draft board. Caden Bogenpole, Orioles fans would have hated that pick once they discovered who Caden Bogenpole is. I just think this is, you grab the last like top quality hitter in that tier right there before the talent really started to drop off. And like you read off some of the numbers there, you compare his freshman numbers to the sophomore numbers because he's a draft eligible sophomore. He had pretty much the same number of plate appearances. The average went from 274 to 291, hit 10 additional home runs, 6 stolen bases to 25 stolen bases. Walk rate actually rose from 19% to 22%. He dropped the strikeout rate from 11.5% to 9%. I know the ISO is for you, Bob. 128 to 265. You see the ISO power there. It's elite contact in the zone. He chases a little bit, but when he does chase, he does it with intent and purpose, and he makes good contact. And the power gain, I think, was real. It's still like average power, but he got to more power while hitting more, making more contact, making better contact. He didn't sacrifice other parts of his game to get to that power. And he's 6'3", 205, and just turned 21 years old. So I think there's more power in there. And like you mentioned, premium defender to premium position. And Carlos Collazo, right before the draft, said he thinks Ty Head could be taken in the first 20 picks. And he said, pull up the quote here from Carlos Collazo, quote, once some of the top tier college hitters come off the board, teams could find themselves looking around at a number of bats with significant holes or defensive profile questions and decide that Ty Head's hit tool and athleticism are as exciting to build on as anything, yada, yada. So kind of what we talked about there. Like, I don't know. I give, if there's doubters about the hit tool, I think Orioles fans specifically, when they hear that, the hit tool questions, their mind goes to Vance Honeycutt. He can't hurt you anymore, guys. Vance Honeycutt cannot hurt you anymore if you just let it go at this point. We're not talking about that type of hit tool concerns with Ty Head, but I will say if there's one thing to, I think, monitor as he gets into games and starts playing is how well is he going to hit as he moves up the ladder. I think that is a valid question, but the other tools are just amazing.
I just love that if this was such an obvious Orioles pick that we took him in the mock draft, or you guys took him in the mock draft. I did 2 separate mock drafts on my own. I took Ty Head in both of those with the same exact pick. Like, it was slam dunk. And everything they've shown that they want in a player the last few drafts, other than the first 2 rounds of the 2024 draft, is here in Ty Head. He's a great center fielder. He's going to stick in center field, so that raises the floor. And he's a draft eligible sophomore, so he just turned 21 less than 2 months ago. He's still got more development than the typical college draftee, in my opinion, just like a Reed Trimble type. So, yeah, I like it. I think like you said, I think he could get to average power, where you're maybe expecting 10 to 15 home runs in a season if he makes it to the majors and gets full-time playing time. And that's fine. If he can go out there, play center field, play a good corner outfield if EBJ's out there or whoever. I absolutely love the pick. If Derek Coryell was like in the running, I feel like he's a poor man's Derek Coryell almost, at least from what I was reading. I don't know how that sounds.
I like it. I think that's fair. Yeah. And you get him in the second round while also getting the ceiling of Eric Booth Jr. in the first round.
Yeah, I agree with that. And before we move on to day 2, I want to go to the last 2 picks of day 1, and that's Vagley and Roberts. 2 different kinds of players here. Vagley, a college pitcher out of Kansas, actually a former 20th round draft pick by the Diamondbacks. And that's going to be a little bit of a theme with some of the pitchers that the Orioles drafted this year. Some of them have been chosen by other teams in prior drafts. With Vagley, this is a case where if you look strictly at the ERA, you're probably not going to like this pick, but you start to look under the hood a little bit. Coming off a season which he threw a career-high 97 innings with a Kansas record 120 strikeouts compared to just an 8.1% walk rate. So good command. Fastball doesn't have a ton of life, as Nick noted in his report, but he can bring it up to 98 miles an hour, and then he's got a slider and a curveball to go along with that. Roberts, if you want to look for the definition of a high-risk, high-reward pick, this may very well be it. He's coming into the system, according to Joe Doyle's scouting grades, as a 40-hit tool, 60 power, 50 run, and 45 arm fielding. Now, we can sit here and probably talk about hit tools all night if we want to, but the bottom line is that Roberts is a guy that, for his size, right now listed at 6'5", 220 pounds, runs very well. The reports about his power are off the chart, and Maybe he has to move off center field into a corner as he gets a little bit older. But for now, he looks like a guy who at the lower levels can play center field and just hit tape measure home run after tape measure home run. Of course, given that he is a guy that is a raw athlete, you're not guaranteed that he is going to sign out of high school. He could go to college, bet on himself, and see if he can get a better selection a few years down the line. But it's certainly a gamble that is worth considering in that spot.
Yeah, I love the Roberts pick. It almost feels like we got an international. He's so young. He doesn't turn 18 for a few more weeks, 3 more weeks, or 2 or 3 more weeks. I can't remember, but it feels like an international signing, like Jordan Sanchez. Like maybe he's a year older than your typical international signing, but just that upside that you typically see the Orioles sign on that side of the amateur acquisition, or you know what I mean. But yeah, so the tools are off the charts. If he can just be like a Steven Martinez, but his body's already put together better. Like Steven Martinez is kind of a beanpole who's putting on weight. This guy's already built like a linebacker. So yeah, I just love this. I love the entire strategy of going high school, there's only one JUCO, but going NAIA, like going maybe the last chance to do this. Let's get these guys in here. Maybe it's a market inefficiency, and we've proven that we can do it in the last couple of years with Nate George, Jaden Loray, other guys that are not coming to DJ Layton, Andrew Tess, et cetera, Braylon Whitaker. Don't want to leave him out. He's been pretty good. So, hey, it's worked for us so far. Let's see if we can continue to do that.
Yeah, I knew nothing about Kevin Roberts going into the draft, but quickly learning about him, and you look at the Orioles taking Kevin Roberts there in the 4th round. Like we're now into the 4th round, so all these guys are going to have flaws, or there's not going to be much ceiling there. So you look at some of the other bats taken around Kevin Roberts. It's like Cam Durnan out of Missouri, Roman Martin out of UCLA. Sure, these guys could probably play in high A today and be promoted to Double A by the end of the season. They're going to be below. They're semi-athletic, comparably speaking. They're very athletic, but like they're like fringe average speed. They might be 8 to 10 home run guys who hit for an okay average, but like there's no ceiling there with those guys, none whatsoever. You go back and look at the 4th round picks over the last 5-6 years. Even knowing what you know now, go back and look at the 4th round picks and see the quality of hitters that get taken. And then compare that to the quality of hitter that Kevin Roberts could be. Like betting on that ceiling, I'm 100% down with this strategy in the 4th round. Yeah, Colin Yima was a 4th round pick. It was Chase Alsip. I don't remember who the hitter guys before that would years past for the Orioles, but not even just the Orioles, just league wide. Look at 4th round picks. You rarely find, I'm not saying he's the best ever. He's far from it, but still he would rank fairly highly among the quality and potential of hitters you're going to find here in the 4th round of the draft. And like Bob said, he's still only 17 years old. And yes, the hit tool, whatever. This is from Landon Balin over at overslot.com. He said, Roberts was, quote, the lone player in the class to sport 80th percentile or higher in zone and overall contact rates with 90th percentile or better bat speed. Is truly elite bat speed. Leading all 2026 peers in the latter, he has advanced feel for the strike zone with hand-eye coordination to match his long levers. Yeah, there's going to be some real fixes that need to be made with his swing, but again, if he does hit, and if he can just be an average hit tool, and maybe he does end up moving to the corner outfield spot, he's got the power, he's got the speed, he's got the athleticism. There's a lot to like here if it starts to click for Kevin Roberts. And he was committed to an SEC program. So it's no slouch.
112 exit velocity at 17 with a wood bat. I mean, insane. That is truly like that's like almost 80 power if he continues to track the next couple of years. Simkin in the chat did the research. Yeeman, Dante Williams, Ryan Stafford, Silas Ardway. Yeah, not exactly the upside bats that Roberts is going to give you.
Yeah, that's a great point that you both make. And I'll go to Vagley for a moment here. This is a pick where I think that there are some parallels between him and some guys they're already in the system. When I saw the stuff, the first thing I thought about was JT Quinn with maybe not as good of baseline stats in his draft year, but a lot more experience as a starter. That was the first thought that came to my mind. But we know the Orioles have a type with pitchers, and it's tall right-handers who can throw hard. One thing that I think Vaguely is going to need to work on is his extension, but they don't have a problem taking a chance on a guy that has good velocity but maybe not good pitch shape yet and working with that fastball.
And Quinn was a third-round pick as well last year, I believe. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. I also saw a comparison to Trey Gibson, where if you feel like he can spin the ball really well between the slider and the curveball and what have you, and learn pitches that way, you can do things with the fastball to make it work, which is, I'm assuming, also what they're going to do with JT Quinn. You add the sinker, you play around with the cutter, you mix the shapes up and make it not as big of a deal. Easier said than done. We'll see how successful that ends up being. But, they obviously have a plan. He's like, I feel like he just came out of the factory mold. Here you go, Orioles lab. Go work with him, work your magic, and he'll be in Double-A this time next year. Just seems very JT Quinn-esque. But like you said, better command / control, walk rate, and a better health history.
Yeah, it's what I had about him coming into the year, and this kind of summarizes all of that. So fastball 92, 93, top 98, slider curve change, toys with fastball grips. He even wants to use a knuckleball. Tried to convince the coaches at Kansas to get him to throw knuckleballs in games, and they said, let's not do that. Can manipulate the hell out of a baseball, athletic, composed, off-the-charts makeup, led the team in strike and whiff percentage in the fall. Like, that's that good Clay you're talking about. Like, the Orioles, it's a smooth delivery, it's repeatable delivery, all those typical markers people like to point out about pitchers, like the head whack and things like that make you go, that's a reliever. It's high effort, head whack delivery, the whole thing, future reliever, blah, blah, blah. Vaguely doesn't have that. It's multiple high-spin secondaries. Like, he already knows how to add to his repertoire easily. Like, that's huge. So when the Orioles bring him in and they want to adjust his repertoire, add, subtract, whatever they want to do, they know he can already adjust to new grips, adjust new pitches with ease, and it's much easier to the Zach Fruit types, all the Zach Fruit stories we heard. They put him under the high-speed cameras one time and say, let's do this with your changeup, let's do this with your curveball, boom, see what happens. Now Zach Fruit's like, that's my best pitch now. Like, that's what you're looking for with a lot of these pitchers, and that's what that moldable Clay is. Like, again, not saying like Vaguely is going to be a slam dunk number 2 starter for the Baltimore Orioles in 5 years, but I didn't understand all the hate on this pick. Would he have been my top choice at this position? Probably not. I also don't have access to all the data and information that a professional MLB team does, but he's here. He's ours now. So he's in the system, and I like this foundation that he's bringing into the organization.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was also going to say, like, I think this is another thing we can add that the Orioles like in their clay molded pitchers is tall. They want them tall. Yeah. They want them to have the same traits we've always talked about, but it seems like now more than ever, they want guys that, like you said, can manipulate the ball well. This guy changes his grips. I think it's smart because the game on the pitching side changes so frequently with new pitch designs and alterations. If you have guys that can adjust on the fly year to year to kind of keep up with that makes a lot of sense.
With the new MyLowe's Pro Rewards American Express card, earn 3 points per dollar spent on Lowe's qualifying purchases for the first 6 months after card account opening. Plus, save 5% every day on eligible purchases at Lowe's and earn points on eligible purchases everywhere else Amex is accepted. Card members get more at Lowe's. Subject to credit approval. 5% can't be combined with any other offer. Exclusions and restrictions apply. Points subject to loyalty terms at Lowe's.com/terms and credit reward terms at Synchrony.com/MLPRA-terms. Visit Lowe's.com/business credit.
We'll go over now to day 2, and it started out in round 5 with the pick Jimmy Anderson, a shortstop out of Heartland Community College. And if that sounds familiar to you, that's because last year the Orioles drafted Anderson in the 19th round. He bet on himself to go back to Heartland and improve his draft stock. That certainly paid off for him. Now, a wrinkle in this is that Anderson does have a commitment to Kentucky, so it is going to be a competitive process for the Orioles to try to get him into their organization. However, it is worth pointing out here that players can ask, or I believe restrict teams that drafted them the year before from drafting them in consecutive drafts. So Anderson obviously didn't do that with the Orioles, and the Orioles still have interest. So keep an eye on those negotiations over the next few weeks. But he could be a fun new addition to the system. In round 6, the Orioles went with left-hander Zane Adams. And a little bit of a different story with Adams had a similar result. Adams was seen as a potential draft prospect last year, but bet on himself to go back to Alabama, actually withdrew from the draft, and then it paid off, adding 3 to 4 ticks to his fastball velocity. He struck out a career-high 25% of the hitters he faced this season across 90 innings. He's been topping out at 96 while sitting in the 92 to 94 range. Ryan Peets, a guy that Nick circled as a target for the Orioles months ago, landed with them in the 7th round. He is a right-hander out of Xavier, and I'll let Nick talk a little bit more about him later on in the segment. Will Plunkett, a high school shortstop out of New York, was chosen in the 8th round. This is a guy that has been rising up draft boards this spring despite not appearing in summer showcase circuits last year, and a lot of that owes to an intriguing bat that offers some power projection. In the 9th round, the Orioles chose right-handed pitcher Colin McKinney out of Arizona, and then in the 10th round, they got a player whose profile might be the most fun to sit here and discuss because it's a unique utility profile, and that's Carlos Sanchez out of Louisiana State University, Shreveport. Sanchez has been a utility player throughout his college career, catching, playing second base, and left field. And despite the fact that he was a Gold Glove outfielder in college with LSU Shreveport this spring, he's primarily been catching in the MLB Draft League. So we'll talk a little bit more about him and McKinney in a few minutes. But, Nick, I'll start with you here. I don't know, do you want to start with Anderson or Adams, or do you want to talk a little bit more about Ryan Peets and why he's been on your radar now for several months?
Let's start 5 and 6 rounds, go down in order real quick. I just think Jimmy Anderson, I thought that was pretty cool. It was pretty shocking to see that they pick him again. Yeah, I agree. I think if the Orioles go to Anderson again and say, hey, we drafted you, 19th round last year? How about 5th round? How does that sound? Yes, it's an SEC commitment, but there's already that relationship that's already built between the two parties. So I think that plays a lot into this. And my whole thing with all of these, the high school picks, I don't know if we want to talk about the high school strategy in general later on or not, but my strategy is, Bob, you're talking about the market inefficiencies. I think this was the market inefficiency that they're trying to go after. And Jimmy Anderson maybe doesn't fit in this, but since I brought it up, it's these guys have commitments to smaller programs. Try to buy them now, get them into the system now before they go off their mid-major program. Sure, it's Will Plunkett is going to Binghamton. Sure, not a super scary program, but what if he finds success at Binghamton and then transfers to Kentucky or Ole Miss or Mississippi State, and now he's making $500,000, $600,000 NIL deal, and you go to draft him again as a junior, he's like, nah, I'm good. I'm making $800,000 this year at Mississippi State. Price of the brick goes up, you're out. You can't draft him anymore. These kids have leverage forever now. Not forever. There's still some limitations, but I think this is part of that market inefficiency. With Jimmy Anderson, I think this is unique, though, because there is that relationship already. They drafted him 2 years in a row. I like the Jimmy Anderson pick just because, go back to last year, I mentioned after his freshman year at community college, JUCO, he went to the North Woods League. So he's using a wood bat against some good, prominent D1 competition. It's a strong league. And he hit, I lost it. He hit a lot. 340. He hit 340, 4 home runs, more walks than strikeouts in the North Woods League last year. So didn't go back this summer, but I love that they went right back to the well there. And I'm excited to see him now that he's hopefully, I think we can say for sure at this point, going to be an Oriole at this point.
Yeah, I find it hard. He had to give them permission to draft him again. They already had that relationship when they were negotiating. Nate George is in the system and thriving until this mystery illness, obviously. But yeah, I don't see. It's almost it was like a draft and follow, the closest you could get to a draft and follow. And yeah, he took his amazing stats that he had as a freshman and just almost a 1,600 OPS in like 59 games or whatever it was. Like insanity, like hitting for power, hitting for average. God, I really, really love that they they took him again. I just think it's really cool. And once they drafted Jimmy Anderson, I'm like, Collie Ritchie next. Like, let's get another one back. But wasn't to be. I don't even know where Colin Ritchie went because it was after the 9th or 10th round at least. But yeah, love the Jimmy Anderson pick. That was a lot of fun to see his name pop back up again. I'm like, aha, I know this one.
Yeah, Anderson, by the way, a former travel ball teammate of Nate George's, but I was thrilled when I saw him pop back up because after negotiations didn't lead to a signing last year, I'm like, all right, I can't count on the Orioles drafting him again because what kind of luck would they have to have that, one, he would want to be open to negotiations with them again, and two, if he has a good year that he's going to fall to them. That's ended up being what happened. So I'm hoping that this time around it works out. And just to go to Zane Adams now, when I started to look into this pick, this kind of became my favorite one of the mid rounds because here's a guy, and here's where you can tell how college baseball has changed. I was looking at some Alabama-focused websites after I found out that Adams had been chosen, trying to find out a little bit more information. And a lot of what was coming out of those was that it was NIL money that helped Alabama get Adams out of the draft last year. And that proved to be the best move for his development for the reasons I just rattled off a moment ago, being able to add to his fastball velocity. But then when you look at the rest of the arsenal, low 80 slider, cutter, and a changeup. And this changeup, it's not quite Braden Sloan territory, but it is a fun pitch to watch. So as soon as I saw this, I thought this is the perfect Orioles left-hander. Good fastball, good changeup, and if one of the slider or the cutter stick, they'll have something here.
Yeah, it was so before the start of last season, I don't know what it was, but he had an illness. He said he went home for Christmas break, got sick, and came back to campus. It knocked him out for about a month. So that delayed, I think he started on time with the team, but he wasn't built up. And I think the Alabama coaching staff had said that the stuff just never regained like the crispness on any of his pitches. And so, like you mentioned, he had the increased velo this year. He did bet on himself because he did get a big bag to stay. And he said, I signed here to play for Alabama. I'm going to stick here with Alabama. I'm sure the money didn't hurt for him when he wants to say that. But he added the velo. The stuff looked a lot sharper this year. I noted that in the day two write-up there. I watched his first outing of the year. I think it was against Washington State. And said, look, the changeup and curveball are piling up the whiffs. He was hitting 96. That was on February 14th, February 15th. He just looked strong out there on the mound. So I think this is how high is the ceiling? Maybe, back end starter if a lot goes right. But like you mentioned, a very like Orioles left-handed pick. You look at guys like the Sebastian Gongoras and stuff of the system and how they've risen in the Orioles system over the past year. So I'm very excited to see how are we talking about Zane Adams a year from now after I'm sure he could probably start in Frederick next year. But if he starts in Frederick, and he's got half a season under his belt, what's he looking like? What's the conversation going to be around surrounding Zane Adams? I think it could be pretty interesting.
Well, last year in the 6th round, they got an interesting tall lefty in Caden Hunter, right? Out of Arizona. Where was he?
Yep.
USC.
Yeah.
I knew it was West Coast. So they get the 6'4" lefty with looks like pitches. And the one thing now, especially after Giroux, Quinn already threw pretty darn hard. Caden Hunter, I'm looking out for these velocity increases from college to pro now when they get in the Oriole system because it seems pretty consistent at this point the last year or two. So if he can do that, then yeah, sky's the limit. Obviously, a lot of big ifs, but that's any pitching prospects you're going to get. That's why it's smart to do it a little bit later in the draft. But yeah, very, very excited for Zane Smith and a lot of these pitchers. I think Ryan Peach was probably my favorite pitcher selected in this draft. He's already got Tommy John out of the way, 2024. Stuff looks great, like sitting 92, touching, or 92, 94, touching 96, 20 inches of IVB. If he can creep up a little bit closer to sitting closer to that 94, maybe 95 mark, I think he could be my guy with a big up arrow in 2027.
I love him. They played East Carolina to begin the year, and that was where I was like, I'm watching Ethan Norby. This is what I'm excited to watch. And it was Ryan Peach stole the show. It was Gavin Van Kempen, who freaking Dodgers, man. They got Trey Savage, but better. I'll lay that flag plant there. But Peach was awesome. like he's young too. He's only 20 years old, I believe still. I love the backstory of just like he had one D1 offer out of high school. Nobody wanted him. And it's Xavier. And he goes to Xavier. And yeah, he had Tommy John surgery. He also had another major injury. I forget exactly what it was. But
it was a hip issue.
Yeah, it was like not just something minor, but he was fantastic this year. All year, he throws a ton of strikes. And again, it's that high arm slot. He's going to devour hitters at the top of the zone. He's got the curveball that tunnels extremely well with the fastball that just drops from the sky on hitters. He's got a full mix, 4 or 5 pitches. I love these mid-major guys that kind of go under the radar all year, and maybe their numbers, the stat lines don't like blow you away, or like the stat lines look good and you're like, yeah, but that's against mid-major competition. I don't care about a lot of the statistics on these guys. It's what does the stuff look like? And that's the Orioles bet on the stuff with these guys, which they rightfully should. Peach has got it. Young arm. I think there could be another tick or two with the fastball. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he already throws a lot of strikes. He's got the good foundation. For me, it's like the hitters with the hit tool. If you come in with that strong foundational hit tool, that's what we want to see now. With pitchers, if you can pound the strike zone, even against mid-major competition, if he can routinely pound the strike zone as much as Peach does and still get results, I will take that as a good sign heading into Pro Bowl.
I think it's easy to forget when you're just looking at stats of these pitchers, like going up against metal bats. The whole mindset on the mound is different when you're in college versus in a professional setting. Like it's just not one for one. All you really can, unless you're freaking Kumar Rocker, Lighter back in a couple of years ago, just racking and Chase Burns. Like obviously some guys are going to put up huge numbers, Paul Skeens, but really all you can go off is stuff, and then you can just refine it as much as you can from there. So I just think it's folly to look at a pitcher's ERA and be like, oh my God, why'd they draft this guy with a 5 ERA? It's like, it's not exactly what it looks like.
If you have a 5 ERA in college, you're pitching pretty damn well.
Right.
The average is like well over 5 at this point because they've juiced the baseballs down there in college as well. And these bats that they're using are just rocket launchers. So, yeah.
Go now to these last 3 picks. I'll start with Plunkett, and to me, I really liked this pick. He was not a guy that was on my radar. I'll admit that going into the draft. But to take a chance on a guy that's coming from the Northeast, doesn't have a huge national profile, but was starting to get more attention as we got further into the spring. That was a smart move here in the 8th round. And keep in mind, and we were just talking about this, the 4th round earlier, the 8th round, or just the range around the 8th round, is where the Orioles have tended to go with pitchers that are seniors or college bats that do one thing, usually defense, very well. The Douglas Hodo, Adam Crampton types. So going with a high school bat here who has some physical projection, I really like that call a lot. And then we rounded that group out with McKinney in the 9th round and then Sanchez in the 10th.
Yeah, I love the Plunkett pick. This is the one that reminds me of Jaden LeRae from last year. Obviously different rounds and a different area of the country, but instead of going out west in Utah where you don't really see as much, and it's a guy with just haven't really heard much of anything about. No one has much on him, but hits line drives, and then all of a sudden he's in spring training games the next spring. I feel like this guy is in the East Coast playing other sports. I want to say he was like all-star basketball and all kinds of other things going on out of New York where you're not really getting the reps because of the cold weather that you can in other parts of the country. 18 years old, 6'3", 200 pounds, known for a line drive oriented swing. He had 485 in the senior year. Tangent, but I remember the one year the Orioles, I think it was even before we were doing this, they had a guy batted like 615 in high school, and everyone's like, oh, this hit tool is going to be off the charts. Never ended up being anything. But yeah, Sumner, just like Jane LeRae, that compact line drive swing, 6'3", 200 pounds. I trust the Orioles to add a little bit of power to that over the next few years as he gets into his early 20s. So I love this pick on an upside play, and it seems like most of the time, if you're taking in the first 10 rounds, you're going to sign. So I think he'd be a huge signing for the Orioles and someone that I'm definitely looking out for early next year as a breakout pick.
Yeah. And to go back to Will Robertson and some of his quotes after the draft, he said that the scouts purposely hit this demographic hard. So they went into this draft cycle with this plan. Did they know that maybe this was the last year? Is there anything to that? This is last year. You might be able to draft high schoolers, maybe a little bit, but at the same time, maybe, again, like I mentioned, maybe they identify in this market inefficiency here with getting this kid who's 6'3", almost 200 pounds, and you just look at videos, there's room. Like you could see this kid getting a lot bigger physically, and maybe it's 50 power now. Maybe there's a little bit more in that tank, but he's entering with like 45, 50 grades across the board. What can you get a little bit more out of? And so, yeah, like maybe I was trying to look at what's the slot value for his pick. My screen is 2, Plunkett. You got about $250K, just under $250,000 start. You've also got the 5% overage that you got to work with. I feel like every team is going to max that out this year. So you got a little bit of extra wiggle room there. Maybe we can go through and talk about some of the other underslot versus overslot potential picks. But I think if the Orioles are saying we went into this knowing that we're going to attack this demographic very hard this year, then the financial side of it, I think makes a lot more sense to them than it does to us as fans. And they've got a pretty clear idea of, maybe they're not going to sign all 20 of these guys. That they know that 1 or 2 are fallbacks just in cases or whatever, or they know are going to be super tough. But I think they probably feel really confident that they're going to be able to get most of these guys in camp.
Yeah, and if we could, I agree with that, by the way, but if we could talk about 9 and 10 real quick. Carlos Sanchez was the one I had a hard time making out. His information came in last, probably, for me. I'm like, what is this? He's a utility player? They drafted a utility player? No, he's basically a catcher. Kind of reminds me of Colin Tuft a little bit, where he played some outfield, he played some other positions, because he's an athletic catcher, basically. Maybe if you combine Victor Figueroa, because it seems like he's got some power. I don't know. But I'm very curious, just because I don't really know what to make of Carlos Sanchez when he shows up in the minors. And Colin McKinney just seems like the classic stuff monster that also is going to be a walk monster, and hopefully you can refine that command a little bit. 6'5", 220 pounds. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, the Sanchez, I got to see him. See what it's about. NAIA product. I like it. That was another interesting thing about this draft class. He was one of 3 guys who are from Venezuela that they drafted. So that's pretty cool to see. I saw an interview, the coach at LSU Shreveport was like, he's not cocky, but he knows he's good at baseball and he's going to let you know it kind of deal. So like, I like the mentality of the kid at least. Can't say I knew anything about him beforehand, but get him in the system. Yeah, let's see what he can do at all these different positions. And McKinney, I mentioned this in the write-up, but I almost wonder if he transferred from Baylor to Arizona. Arizona had a lot of pitching injuries, and McKinney still didn't become like an everyday weekend starter for them. So I think maybe there was something to he just didn't have a defined role, and maybe that just kind of messed with him a little bit, and the success really wasn't there like he thought it would be maybe. But he struck out a ton more guys this year, like 26% strikeout rate. Yeah, he did walk some guys, but he went to the draft league this year, pitching for West Virginia. And like with a lot of guys we've seen in the past, Christian Rodriguez, Evan Yates, some others, they go to the draft league. The Orioles get one last look at these guys close to home, and they're shining. It kind of solidifies their draft stock there. Because in the draft league, McKinney is throwing 95 miles an hour with 17 plus inches of induced vertical break. He's throwing cutters and curveballs that are like 2,800, 2,900 RPMs, huge extension. Again, knows how to spin a baseball. So McKinney is a guy who I think they're going to put him on a starter's track, and we'll see what he looks like next year.
Yeah, as you noted, Nick, and you're right, McKinney is actually set to transfer to Houston. So another program interested in him. Maybe Arizona wasn't the best environment for him, but could be an underslot signing maybe for the Orioles.
With the new MyLowe's Pro Rewards American Express card, earn 3 points per dollar spent on Lowe's qualifying purchases for the first 6 months after card account opening. Plus, save 5% every day on eligible purchases at Lowe's and earn points on eligible purchases everywhere else Amex is accepted. Card members get more at Lowe's. Subject to credit approval. 5% can't be combined with any other offer. Exclusions and restrictions apply. Points subject to loyalty terms at Lowe's.com/terms and credit reward terms at Synchrony.com/MLPRA-terms. Visit Lowe's.com/business credit.
We'll move on now to rounds 11 through 15. In the 11th round, the Orioles drafted right-hander Ross Norman out of Coastal Carolina. Norman started his college career at Georgia State before transferring to Coastal Carolina. Before this season, listed at 6'7", 210 pounds, the right-hander saw an uptick in his fastball velocity this spring, even if the baseline stats weren't great. In the 12th round, they went with catcher Leo Marrero out of Hardy High School in Florida, listed at 6'1", 220 pounds. Marrero is noted right now from his impressive power from the left side of the plate. In the 13th round, they chose Garrison Sumner, who was actually drafted by the Red Sox last year in the 20th round. Sumner, a 6'3" right-hander out of BYU, saw an uptick in fastball velocity and strikeouts this spring. Miguel Hugas out of Mercer was the Orioles' 14th round pick. This is another player that has transferred recently. He came from Chippewa College in Florida. As a team Saturday starter, he had a 6.17 ERA and 73 in a third innings pitch this year, but for reasons we'll get into in a little bit more detail here in a few minutes, there's reason to believe there is an up arrow next to his name. And then in the 15th round, the Orioles grabbed right-hander Braden Smith out of the University of Central Florida, whose season was cut short after he was hit in the head by a line drive in a start against West Virginia. Coming into this spring, though, he was seen as a guy that could rise up some draft boards after putting together an excellent 2025 season at Division II Maryville University. So this is an interesting group of players, and just kind of curious to get your guys' thoughts on the Orioles' strategy in rounds 11 through 15.
For me, I'll be quick. This is 4 pitchers I don't know a ton about. Seem pretty generic, right-handed, 6 foot plus, except for Ross Norman. I mean, 6'7", 210 pounds. That's pretty good. That's a classic Orioles pick right there. That it makes sense to me that it's going to take him longer for everything to come together with that frame. So we'll see what they can do there. But yeah, Leo Marrero, a high school catcher with good power. Again, it's kind of reminds me of how they always get a power hitting catcher in the international market, and obviously high school, international. You're getting a younger guy. You can develop under your own tutelage for longer. I like power hitting catchers. We got Samuel Basayo, Adley Rutschman in the majors, and a ton of them throughout the minors. So add to that list. Love to see it.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting when we get into next year. But also, I just have to address the comment about I like power, but the guys who can hit get ignored comment there. Guys without power, guys who had less than ideal hit tools were punished severely in this year's draft class, not just by the Orioles, but by the entire league. So the guys with strong hit tools and power potential, they don't have to show the power right now, but those guys were rewarded in this year's draft. So it's all. Don't worry.
So if you have a great hit tool, but you can't impact the ball, you get a Griffo Farrell in the second round. But
yeah,
I hate to pick on Griffo Farrell, but he's unfortunately one of the few not successful early round picks of the Orioles.
Yeah, you toil around in high A and double A your whole life. But yeah, Norman, I'm interested to see what he can do after a year, just because he came from Georgia State, and Georgia State, it is what it is. I'm sure it has its merits as an academic institution and other things, but it's not, producing, developing athletes, we'll say, especially baseball, football. But he goes to Coastal Carolina and saw some immediate gains. We know what that university can do. I think a lot of those guys went to South Carolina, though, now, which impacts potentially another Orioles draft pick here that they took in this range. But yeah, I'm interested to see what Norman looks like once he gets into a pro system. Marrero, just don't know anything about the guy. It's a USF commit. So again, how hard is he going to be to buy out? I really like Garrison Sumner, 6'3" righty out of BYU. It's just, I know D1 Baseball had a whole thing. He was their pick to click entering the season because they were basically like, none of these BYU guys can throw strikes. None of them, except Sumner. He can throw strikes. But he comes back after his sophomore year. They saw improved stuff in fall ball. They really liked, and that led to more strikeouts. He struck out almost 30% of guys he faced last year, went pretty deep, 66 innings across 10 starts, 15 appearances. So I like Sumner's potential in a pro system as well. Hugus, I'm curious to see where they go with this guy. He was JUCO. He goes from JUCO to Mercer, and then he was committed to South Carolina. I just mentioned that they get the Coastal Carolina staff next year. But he's transferred to South Carolina, so could be a little bit of a difficult sign. We'll see. But I don't think I saw South Carolina baseball fans are fanatics, and they're already putting depth charts together for 2027 season. They don't have Hugus as a projected weekend starter, maybe kind of a reliever type guy, maybe a weekday starter at South Carolina next year, but he's pumping 99. He's closing out games in the Cape Cod League this year. So I don't know. Do the Orioles try to stretch him out, make him a starter, or is he a plug and play guy as a reliever? I don't know. TBD. And yeah, Braden Smith is just kind of, I'm wait and see what he looks like next year, but glad he's clearly okay after a pretty scary injury last year.
And we know now why the Orioles traded Braden Smith for Nick Rackett earlier in the season. They had another Braden Smith lined up to take his place. And are we sure it's not pronounced Miguel? He's got a huge ass. We can get Al Pacino to guest announce him coming in.
We'll promote that to Delmarva Broadcaster next year. See if he does it.
Yeah, Mark, when you announce him starting a game in a couple years at AA.
Yeah, with Braden Smith and Nick, I have done some research on Smith, and I had missed this note, but you have it in your piece recapping day two. His condition after he was hit by the ball was described as touch and go, and it was so bad that he was not medically cleared to fly back to Florida. He had to actually go back by car. So that gives you a sense of how scary that situation was. Whether or not, that's a guy who tries to just focus on his recovery and go back to college next year and try to build on the momentum he had up until that injury remains to be seen. But either way, I think that that's a good pick here. Hugus it could be the wild card in this whole range because, as you mentioned, transferring to South Carolina, and this is one dynamic of the NIL situation that I had never considered before this draft, which is how much should you read into college programs wanting these guys, even if they're not projected for big roles? Because South Carolina, that's a program that's going in and out to win every year. As Nick just mentioned, this matches some things that I found too. He's not projected for a large role there, but the bottom line is they saw enough that they liked him. And a good year at South Carolina could do a lot for his draft stock. So I don't know that it's a guarantee that he signs, but taking a chance there in the 14th round, I have no problem with it. And I agree. I'm going to talk about Sumner a little bit later on in the episode, just to drop a hint there, but I really liked this pick a lot. And then we'll go now into the final range here, rounds 16 through 20. In the 16th round, the Orioles selected shortstop Braden Fry out of Cranford High School. It is worth noting that Fry is committed to St. Joe's. However, before we came on air on Monday night, he had told a local publication, Tap into Cranford, that he was leaning towards signing with the Orioles. So at this point in time, there is not a deal done yet, but for right now, it looks like that he very well may enter the system here in the coming days or weeks. The Orioles then
His agent is pissed that he said that.
I'm sure he is. In the right hand, or in the 17th round, the Orioles went with right-hander Diego Gutierrez out of San Diego. He's followed in the 18th round by a very intriguing pick, Gunnar Garrison, a right-hander out of Easton High School in Colorado. I don't know that Garrison, whose fastball was topping out at 96 this spring, is going to sign with the Orioles or go through with his commitment to Arizona State. But either way, you want to keep an eye on this here in the coming weeks. In the 19th round, the Orioles grabbed outfielder Victor Salazar out of Pato High School in Texas. And then in the 20th round, they ended the draft with another high school arm, this time going with Ross Davis out of Rusk High School in Texas. Listed at 6'3", 200 pounds, Davis reportedly sits 92 to 94 miles per hour and had touched 96 this spring, and that allowed him to be one of the top strikeout arms in the entire state of Texas this past spring. So a couple of high school pitchers in this range, which is not something we are used to seeing the Orioles target at all, and to go along with a couple of interesting high school bats, and then a guy in the 17th round in Gutierrez who has a really unique background. He's an older arm at 23, but still kind of an interesting story there.
Yeah, I'll say all these high school guys, again, we'll see. I don't know anything about Braden Fry at Cranford High School in New Jersey. Shout out to you, though. St. Joe's commit, again, yeah, it doesn't sound like he was like heavily recruited by MLB teams. But yeah, that article did mention that he worked out for the Orioles, said it went well. And yeah, he's got to sign. He clearly spilled the beans there a little early. And again, the 19th and 20th round guys, the Ross Davis pick, we'll see. Both those guys are committed to JUCO programs, so I don't know how to view that. I mean, it's hard enough to sit here and try to talk about what is this guy that's committed to Arizona State going to do. The JUCO pick, I mean, the Orioles can still go up to 150K without dipping into the signing bonus pool, so I imagine 150K for a guy going to San Jacinto Junior College might be super intriguing to get into that pro system now. So we'll see what happens with Salazar, who another one of the Venezuelan-born players, and Ross Davis. Just the fact that they drafted 2 high school pitchers is mind-blowing. But yeah, I like Gutierrez a lot. Gunnar Garrison is the one that scares me the most. I just feel like he was the just in case. Yeah, I think he was the backup, and they say if they can find 400K, they throw it at him. But the kid's committed to Arizona State. Like, that's He's 6'5", 235 pounds, and throws 96 miles an hour. Yeah, I imagine Arizona State also wants him out west. But yeah, Gutierrez, just older arm. Yes, I know, 17 years old, and he probably starts in Del Marva's rotation next year, and he's putting up huge numbers, but he's going to be, 24 probably at that point. Fifth-year senior. He spent 4 years at Cal State Northridge. Missed the entire 2023 season. Gets a fifth year of eligibility. Goes to San Diego. Was a starter. Strike out 28% of guys he faced. Got the walk rate down a little bit. Older arm, I get it. So, again, the numbers, they are what they are. But what impressed me was I found out this morning that he's pitching the Appalachian League this summer, and he gets a spot on the Appy Select team, which is the Appalachian League, and the Cape Cod League forms a team. Some of these college summer ball teams will form all-star teams to play against Team USA before Team USA goes off and faces international competition, which is obviously made up of all the top college guys. A lot of the guys we're going to be talking about next year's draft class are make up Team USA right now. Gutierrez pitched 2 innings, struck out 6 guys, had 9 whiffs in those 2 innings against Team USA this summer. So it's good. He's got good velo, huge, a ton of life, 22 plus inches of induced vertical break. The fastball is producing an insane amount of whiff this summer in the Appalachian League. So I'm intrigued. Maybe, I don't know why, just a little, the Christian Rodriguez, what's the ceiling? TBD. He's going to dominate lower level competition probably, but is there maybe a little something extra in there? We'll see.
Yeah, Braden Fry, if he doesn't sign, it's the biggest shock of the century. But another East Coast kid, infielder, 6 foot, 165 pounds. Clearly, he needs to put on some weight, some good weight, some muscle. But he still hit 10 home runs in his senior season. Maybe they were gappers and he ran around the bases. Hard to tell with high school. But, yeah, Gutierrez is certainly interesting. Gunnar Garrison, if I could sell my soul to the devil to get one of these picks to sign, it would be him. Yeah, I think it's like if Roberts doesn't sign, maybe you can get Garrison. We'll see. But would love to get that talented arm in the system for sure. Salazar, high school hitter. I don't know. Again, we'll see his stat line in the FCL about a year from now and go from there. And Ross Davis, he'll sign. I mean, JUCO, you're going to take $150,000 and go professional baseball over. I'm guessing going to JUCO. Same with the outfielder too. But hey, we have had probably similar discussions of late round picks in the last few drafts, and now we know their names. So get our attention, guys.
Who was the guy? I'm trying to look real quick. Who was the guy last year that was signed late? Brian Arancio. Brian Arancio was like one of the last guys to sign, and he went over slot. He got an extra $1,000.
Biller too, maybe.
Biller was.
I think he was like one of the later.
Load it up. It's not loading here. Okay. Oh yeah, he did too. Yeah, both those guys, an extra $1,000.
Yeah, that got it done.
Maybe that could do it for some of these, the 19th and 20th round guys at least.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping our eye on whether or not some of these picks sign with the Orioles in the coming weeks. And we'll talk about some draft signings as they happen when we come on air. But, of course, you can check out our Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com, for Nick's written recaps of both day 1 and day 2 of the draft, as well as our draft tracker, which we're going to be updating between now and the signing deadline, which will be later on this month, Monday, July 27th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. That is the deadline that all 30 teams have to sign their draft picks. So between now and then, the draft tracker over our Substack will be updated. All the reports for players are there now. They're kind of summaries of some of the reports that Nick wrote, as well as some information I had found. But we'll be putting signing bonus information in there, as well as how much money the Orioles have left in their bonus pool as information comes out here in the next few weeks. And with that, now we will head into our final segment of the night, Last Call, brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street. Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre- or post-game drink. But if the Orioles are out of town, or you just want somewhere to go hang out tomorrow and watch the All-Star game, Checker Spot is also a great place to watch a game because they have plenty of good food and drinks to go along with TVs. And circle your calendar now for Saturday, August 1st. That is when Checker Spot will be teaming up for the South Baltimore Brewing District Hot Dog Race. Checker Spot has won that race twice as Relish. Will be facing off against Pickett as Mustard and Mate Brewing as Ketchup. That will be taking place on the afternoon of Saturday, August 1st. So check out Checker Spot and South Baltimore Beer District's social media for more details about that event between now and then. And now in our last call segment, we're going to go ahead and call our shot here. Who is the real sleeper of this draft class that we like right now, and that once they enter the Orioles system, we're going to be circling as a possible breakout candidate? And to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to Bob.
I was conflicted between a few different guys, but I think I'm going to land on Jimmy Anderson just because it speaks volumes to me how much the Orioles must love this kid. If they drafted him last year, tried to get him signed, obviously didn't work. A year goes by, and they like him enough to draft him 14 rounds higher and probably give him a pretty sizable bonus, at least $500,000, I would imagine. So that speaks volumes to me. And, you know, they scoured the JUCO ranks last year, and he caught their eye twice. It seems to be I know JUCO draft picks were actually down this year from recent years, which is maybe that has to do with, hey, let's dip a little bit lower in high school this year. I don't know. But Jimmy Anderson was one of not that many JUCO guys to get selected. And I don't know. I trust when the Orioles really dial in on a player, it's for a reason. And I think we're going to be pretty excited when he gets to show us what he's got, maybe at the end of this year, maybe early next year.
I will. This is also to convince myself that I like the guy now. But I'm going to go Ross Norman, at the 11th rounder out of Coastal Carolina. Again, because as I mentioned in the article, I watched this guy throw a no-hitter against my alma mater, and probably said some pretty nasty things as that outing was happening. But he's one of us now, so I forgive him. 6'7", 220 pounds. And yeah, he didn't strike out a lot of guys last year, just 18% strikeout rate, but he didn't walk anybody. It was just a 5% walk rate. So he throws a lot of strikes. He has success. Again, going from Georgia State to Coastal Carolina. Yes, it's still in the Sun Belt, but I mean, those two programs are on two completely opposite ends of the spectrum down there. He immediately saw an increased velo, got a couple ticks on the fastball, added like 2+ inches of induced vertical break. He gets 6.5 feet, more than 6.5 feet of extension. He's touching 97 miles per hour now. I think he was predominantly a 2-pitch pitcher, but I want to see what the Orioles are going to do with him. He's going to be on the starter's track, I fully imagine, being an 11th round draft pick. So I want to see, can they develop 4 or 5 pitches into that mix? What is the velo sitting at next year when he's probably starting in Delmarva's rotation to begin the year? TBD, obviously. And is he striking out more guys? If halfway through the year, is he sporting a 24, 25% strikeout rate while still walking, 5, 6, 7, 8% of guys? I think that's going to be a good sign. So my early pick will be Ross Norman.
If you ever talk to him, just explain to Ross, we were on a break. That's a Friends reference for you, millennials.
My wife will greatly appreciate that, so I'll do that.
Good.
I'll go with Garrison Sumner out of BYU for my pick. I teased this a few minutes ago, but you look at the improvements that he made this spring. Fastball velocity uptick, sitting 93, 94, topping out at 97. Struck out a career-high 28% of the batters he faced, over 66 innings pitched. And it's really not just about the fastball, though. He's got a really good slider, a 2,800 RPM curveball. So there's a lot in that arsenal to like. And you could look at it and say, yeah, it's a senior college arm coming 13th round pick. There's not a ton of ceiling there. And I would generally agree with that. But consider that being that he's a college guy, there's a very good chance that at the worst, he's in Delmarva's rotation at the beginning of next year, provided he's healthy and he's one of the first guys up to Frederick, or he starts the year perhaps in a tandem role at Frederick, but then gets an opportunity to start. Either way, I think there's going to be some length in his development early on, at least till he gets to Double-A. See what he can do in the rotation, and if it doesn't look like it's going to work out, there's an arsenal here that could translate really well to the bullpen. So I feel like that Sumner may be one of those guys that a year from now, provided everything goes well as his health, that we'll be talking about how far he's come just in the last 2 or 3 months.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it all. Just this whole draft class, shocking, fun. Sure, there's a lot more questions, beginning with who's going to sign, who's not going to sign. I think more questions about that than general, but this is going to lead to, I think, some fascinating conversations next year. This year has not been fun in many ways. So I think, at least from the prospect side, though, and we'll see how many of these guys make their debuts this year. I would imagine probably not many, probably more of the UDFAs. I know they've added 4 so far today. We'll probably see those guys first, but over the first month or two of next season, we're going to have a lot of fun talking points, hopefully fun talking points about these guys as we learn more.
Yeah, a couple final notes for me is I am intrigued more than usual or ever before to check out these UDFAs, because past couple years they've found some gold mining those depths, and especially on the bullpen reliever prospect front. I think that's kind of what they're targeting. Some college seniors and guys that if you can just, I don't know, throw them in the bullpen, see what can happen. And also, I wonder if for the Orioles specifically, going so young with the JUCO and the high school, is we've had a lot of that pipeline clog in the middle of the system the past couple of years. Maybe this kind of is like kicking that can a little bit back and letting it kind of filter through a little bit towards the top.
Good points there. And with that, that does it for this week. So we will be back next week. Probably going to be a mailbag. So be sure to check out some prompts if we do open our mailbag in our Discord community. But, of course, you're welcome to drop a question in there at any time. In the meantime, you can check out our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to patreon.com and sign up to become a member today. You can join the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to bonus weekly shows from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to our top 50 list, patron-exclusive channels within our Discord community, and a whole lot more. For Bob, Phil, and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.
I hope you have a great night. That was stupid.